500 years ago this month, the dancing plague of 1518 happened. Hundreds of people were compelled to dance. Now, what does that have to do with grown-up skills for life? Well, let's find out more. Mania that gripped the city of Strasbourg, France, on the Germany border along the Rhine River. People began dancing, arms were flailing, bodies were convulsing. It was kind of like a modern day rave. But it happened for hours, and hours turned into days until they actually became unconscious, and some people even died. They were called choreomaniacs. They were men, they were women, they were in the public marketplaces, they were in the streets, they were in the alleys. It was day, it was night. They danced, they hopped. They really took Lady Gaga's song just a bit too far. It all began with Frau Trophia. She just began to dance outside of her home. Her husband came out and pleaded with her to stop, and she wouldn't. She just danced until she actually collapsed. And the next morning she woke up and she did it all again. After 3 days, she kind of began to draw a crowd, and people began to watch. And on the 5th day, the authorities showed up. They took her to the tomb of Saint Vitus. And Saint Vitus, it was a legend that if you ever made him mad, he would be vengeful and make you dance. So they took her to the tomb where there was a little tiny sculpture of him made out of wood. They put a cross in her hand. They put red shoes on her feet. Maybe where Dorothy got her shoes from in The Wizard of Oz.
There's no place like home.
They sprinkled holy water on her. There was incense and Latin incantations. And after a while, she was healed. Unbeknownst to her, others began to mimic her. Now, the doctors were called in, and they decided that the blood was being overheated. So they took these hot-blooded people and they bled them. That didn't work, so they just decided to let them dance it out. So platforms were built, and people started dancing in these raves, and musicians were paid to play, but it backfired horribly. 400 people joined in, so the prohibition of dance was on. Now I gotta cut loose. They outlawed dancing except for weddings, and the weddings had to be inside the home, and inside the home you couldn't use a tambourine or a drum. Eventually, everyone who didn't die was healed, and it left as quickly as it came. There are a lot of theories floating around as to why this thing took off like it did. Medical theories, psychological theories, spiritual theories, even a theory about early women's movement, so that when Frau Trophia did what she did, other women took note that there was something going on between her and her husband, and so they wanted to join in. The suffrage rights or whatever, kind of reminiscent to the story in the book of Esther. If you remember, when the king got drunk one night during a party, he invited his wife, Queen Vashti, to come and present herself before all the guys in the wedding party, and she refused. Well, all the guys got together and said, if we let this pass, then all the other women are going to respond in the same way and disrespect their husbands, so they passed a law, and you can read the story there in the Old Testament. Most stories have a moral. This one is a little difficult to see, so I'd love to get your thoughts on it. What would you say is the point of this story? I just wanted to tell it because it's a fascinating story. But I did have a couple of ideas that kind of passed my mind. One is the idea of the drummer, everyone dancing to the beat of the different drummer. In the culture in which we live, there's this group think, or this collective subconscious where we all just kind of follow in the same way. Where is the independent thinker? That's what we're looking for. People who think independently and not in a group think, who can lead us in the right direction. People who have passion. That great poet John Bon Jovi said, and I quote, "Nothing is important as passion. No matter what you want to do with your life, be passionate." So my question for you, where's your passion? What drives you? What is the thing that you love the most? Are you just driven by what other people are doing, you just follow them? Or are you setting out on your own path? What is your purpose in life? Have you discovered that yet? What are your values, your strengths, those things that you stand on that make you who you are, that set you apart from the crowd? What is your why? What do you stand for? And then after that, when you figured out your passion and you figured out your purpose, then find out what is that fear that keeps you from moving forward. The fear that you're not going to be going with everyone else, or the fear that you're going to fail. Find out what that is. Find your passion. What is your purpose? Discover that. And then don't let fear hold you back from blazing your own path and moving away from groupthink and moving away from collective consciousness. Be the leader that God has made you to be, and step out and lead yourself. Move out and step away from the dancing plague. Follow the beat of your own drummer. Remember, give me some comments below. Would love to see what your moral of this story would be. Check out more about Grown Up Skills for Life at nextstepdanny.com.